Good morning, and thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Jason Borba, and I handle the marketing here at Milk Group. So this is us. As you guys know, we are Milk Group, and we provide solutions for dairies. Sorry, a lot of people are starting to come in, so I'm trying to multitask here. So we're going to be talking about feed today, but we do offer other solutions in our one platform. It brings all the essential parts of your dairy into one easy to use app. So we have our Animal, which is our herd management software. We have Facility, which is live parlor monitoring. So you can see everything that's going on. So your milk production, your tank levels, your pH, your chemical usage, your water usage, anything that you want to monitor inside your parlor, we can do that. We have our People module, which is HR and training. So it has a sub module within People called TrainTrack, where you can do all your onboarding, dairy training, all those things on that platform. And then our newest is Scale, which is weight and scale management for harvest and other industries like that. So those are kind of the main things we have going on right now. We have more coming down the pipeline, but those are all the things that are released. They're all integrated together, and they all work in the same app. So everything is tied together in one easy to use place. So that's my little spiel there on Milk Group. If you guys have any questions about that kind of stuff, that's what we can talk about at the end, and Michelle can also answer questions about some of the other products. But right now, I'm going to stop talking, and I am going to turn it over to Michelle.
Thanks for taking the time to join us. I promise it will get better from here onwards. It's been about 5 years now since we launched our feeding management software. We are working with about 600 farms, a little over 600 farms in 9 countries. The US remains our primary market. And over these past 5 years, we've seen a lot of things. We've worked with a lot of people. And we thought we would give everyone a quick update on some of the things we see and notice that can have a big impact on the success of utilizing primarily our feeding management software, but some of the concepts we'll be talking about here today can be utilized for any other product, really. So today's goal is really to help owners, managers, and consultants to make the best out of our application. Some of the key highlights that we'll be talking about today is or involve the proper setup of the hardware and the users, some of the key features, how to maximize their use, few tips to monitor and ensure data quality. At the end of the day, we're trying to generate data that we can make decisions, and we can only make good decisions off of good data. Some recommendations for simple data analysis that we can do today, utilizing some of simple tools like Excel, for example. Hopefully, we can go home with some takeaways, and we are also hoping to have a little discussion at the end. First things first, data quality really begins with proper installation of the hardware. Our hardware should come with a how-to guide, a setup guide. It's usually the paper that people toss in the trash when they get our hardware, but anybody with any questions or needs for assistance should work with our support team to get help on how to properly install the sensors. Here on the left is our mesh-based sensor that was initially used for all applications or all installs. Now it's reserved for more complex installs. We've come out with a Bluetooth long-range sensor that is used for more simple installs. Regardless of the sensor, they both require proper mounting so that things don't rattle. The cables need to be properly mounted so that things don't rattle and don't interfere with weight measurements, moisture as well, especially for the mesh-based sensors that have the connectors. Make sure that those are protected from water, from moisture. So that's one example right there. The next thing is to make sure that the scale indicator itself is properly calibrated so that the one-feed sensor can also be properly calibrated. Our sensor is calibrated through our mobile app and is calibrated off of the scale indicator. This means that our measurements on the mobile app are only going to be as accurate as the scale indicator. So if the scale indicator is not properly calibrated or has issues, malfunctioning issues, then our app will suffer from those issues as well. It's important to identify what is your ground truth for weight measurements. Is the truck scale the ground truth? Is someone coming on farm with certified weights and calibrating your mixer? Whichever way the farm is using, it's important to assure that the scale is properly calibrated, and then only after that calibrate our sensor through our mobile app. That's really, really important for data quality. The next important component is setting up people for success, your employees. That includes simple things as proper placement of the mobile device in the loader, in the tractor, and in the truck being used to deliver feed, charging cables, making sure that the device is stable, is not rattling, moving around. All of that helps with giving the operator the best chance to mix and deliver feed accurately. For smaller farms where the operator needs to move around and away from the loader or the mixer, it's usually better to utilize a small smartphone that the operator can carry around. This is really neat also if the farm has bean augers or pumps, valves that need to be turned on and off, the operator can really walk around with the scale in their hands. But in general, proper setup of the devices being used really helps the employee not have to worry about one more thing when they're loading and unloading feed. The next thing we would like to emphasize is giving our product, or any product really for that matter, a chance to excel. We are building cloud-based technology, which brings a lot of things to the table. With that said, it does require a minimum level of internet reliability for farms to get the most out of the product. The product is built to work offline, but there are limitations. And then the more we go offline, the more we give away, the more we chip away from the product capabilities. Simple things like synchronizing rations, synchronizing ingredient dry matter, pin counts, those type of things. If we want our operators to always have the most up-to-date data, and we want to have the most up-to-date data from what they are doing, again, a minimum level of internet reliability is important. Our mobile app works with Android and iOS devices. Those can work over cellular data or Wi-Fi data to communicate with our cloud, which then can communicate, and anybody can then communicate with our cloud as well. So just to emphasize that it's important to give the product a chance to excel. Some of the best practices with employee management, the product offers a platform through our people module, which should be the bottom icon on the left sidebar on our web application, where we can set up every user, every employee, and it's important to create a unique login and password and make sure that the employees are using their unique login and password, because that allows management and consultants to do traceability and accountability. The permissions table allows different employees to change different things, and that's important because we can leverage the power of people who have more capability and people who are more perhaps limited to what they can do. But that's important because when we have a team of people, it's really important to utilize every employee to the best of their capabilities. The switchable feeder is a very neat feature that allows users to quickly change the app to their login without having to log out and log in again, and it's one of the permissions down here. Anybody with needs for assistance with that, please reach out to our support. We can always help set up that. Another thing that's really relevant with employee management is assigning someone to manage the feeding software. It's not a set and forget type of thing. As much as we like to think it is, it's really important to have a champion for the technology, someone who is there monitoring, making sure everybody is using it properly, making sure that the hardware stays mounted properly, making sure that the devices are updated. So it's really important, and we usually see farms succeeding when they have someone in charge of the feeding software versus just leave it at its own with everybody using it at their will. Lastly, this is really, really important, foster employee development. Require and reward employees for taking and completing training. We offer Milk Academy. It's here at the bottom of the screen on the web browser. It's also under the hamburger menu on the mobile app. It's an academy full of training for any one of our products, but primarily a lot of training for the feeding software. Free of charge, everybody has access to. So please encourage your employees to take training and continue to improve, because that's how we maximize any technology, really. Otherwise, we're going to underutilize and leave money on the table when we don't have employees that are up to speed with training. Some of the key features that we would like to cover in today's talk, and we see people usually underutilizing some of those features, include our ingredients, setup page and changes, recipe management, pen updates, mixing and delivering loads, inventory management, and lastly, some of our integrations and automation features. This one is a very, very low-hanging fruit. Naming of variables such as ingredients, recipes, pens, and equipment, naming of those variables in the feeding software. We know we have limited real estate on the screen, so we need to be mindful of what we display to the operators. We need to think that the most crucial player in our team at the time of mixing and delivering is the operator. It's not the office person, it's not the consultant, it's the operator. So we need to make sure we give them an opportunity to see what we're trying to do. In the mobile app, we always have the recipe name here at the top. Those are the pens that are going to be part of this load. Here's ingredient name, target amount, and here's next ingredient, okay? Always start the name of any one of those, the most important information on the left, okay, over here, because that's what the operators are going to see, and the application always cuts off or trims off on the right. So here's an example, okay? This is a real example from a farm. They named this ingredient 2024 corn silage irrigation field 34 diameter percent pile 3. Intention was really good. The year in which it was harvested, the ingredient itself, the field where it came from, the dry matter at harvest, and the location. Okay, well, that cuts off a lot of the most important stuff for the feeders over here, and that all gets cut off in the app. Therefore, all the feeder sees is 2024 corn silage. If we have 3-4 piles, then where is that? Especially for a relief feeder that comes sporadically and doesn't have a lot of familiarity, this is really crucial. So a much better way of naming that ingredient is pile 3 corn silage, which only cuts off 2024 here on the app. You see pile 3 corn silage. So just an example of how that can make a huge impact on mitigating feeder error, for example, loading the incorrect ingredient. Ingredient dry matter percent and history, really, really crucial to assign someone in the team to be in charge of keeping the dry matters up to date. Whatever means are being used to measure, it's important to have someone in charge of doing that, so that later on we can go and check the activity log and see how often the dry matter was measured. The app itself has a feature here to see history, which I'll get to in just a second. But before, we can see it's pretty simple to change dry matter. It should take about 15 seconds, as long as someone has the permission. And then after that, we can go inside that ingredient, scroll down and see the dry matter history. And there's a nice graph and a nice documentation of when that dry matter was done, and the activity log will show who did it. So it's really important to have someone in charge of that. Some of the key features for recipe management: density, the first one. This becomes more relevant with, even more relevant with flex feeding, our batch loads. Density can be used to determine max capacity for a given recipe. For example, if density is left at 100%, then the max capacity of that recipe is going to be the max capacity of the equipment. If density is set at 85%, then the max capacity for this particular recipe is 85% of the equipment's capacity. This is important for fluffy recipes like dry cow loads, some of the heifer loads that have a lot of fluffy stuff. It's more important to look at the amount that we can put in the wagon more so than the weights. Next is constant dry matter. There's a toggle here to enable that feature. If the feature is enabled and the recipe contains water, then our application will adjust the amount of water to keep the recipe dry matter constant. If any one of the other ingredients has a change in the dry matter percent, our application will adjust water up and down to keep the dry matter constant. The next feature is variable refusals. This is a really neat feature in the program. Let's say we needed to make 10,000 pounds of this particular recipe. We set refusals as the first ingredient at a variable rate. The operator can put, let's say, 3,000 pounds. When they accept that they've added variable refusals, then the application knows that now we need to make 7,000 pounds, 10,000 minus 3,000, utilizing all the other ingredients, and will respect their proportions. It's a pretty nice feature. Alternate recipes here at the bottom. This is really cool. We can see this particular recipe as an alternate, and the green dot here means it's being used. The alternate is active. And it's a neat feature if we have ingredients that go in and out of a ration, or if we have byproducts that are delivered sporadically. As soon as the operator runs out of something, they can activate the alternate recipe, and then all the loads will switch to that alternate recipe. Lastly, we have a section for notes here at the bottom, and I think it's often underutilized because it's a little hard to see, but it's here at the bottom. We can't really write a dissertation there, but it should be a good place to write short notes and some comments regarding the past few recipe iterations, why we did it, when we changed it, and what changed, so that when we come back next time, we don't need to go to the activity log and dig out all of that. Most of it is listed down here. Some of the key features related to our pens. The first one is the ability to import pen count. We basically have 3 opportunities. Cloud integration. We do that with our own herd management software called Animal. We also do that with another herd management software based here in the United States. We have developed our own file uploader for any non-cloud-based herd management software that can export a pen count file. We have a file uploader that will upload that file to our cloud, and it can be customized to work on a schedule or to work on a 1 time a day. This is really cool because it allows us to proactively change pen counts without changing pen counts in the feed software. Not going to get too deep into that, but if you have questions, reach out to our support. We can explain more about how that works. And we always have the manual import pen count button here, which can be used on demand. One thing that I don't think users realize is how easy it is to turn a pen on and off. We still see a lot of users zeroing out the pen count or zeroing out the intake, when in fact we have enable disable features. So if a pen is not being used, just disable it, and then the bar here will turn red, which is a lot easier, and also doesn't count against the subscription. So good in that regard as well. Another thing that confuses people sometimes, or users, is the difference between target dry matter per head and gold dry matter per head. Those are 2 fields in the pen itself. We'll start with target dry matter per head, which is a little easier. This is the target amount of feed that we're trying to deliver every day for a pen. Gold dry matter per head, on the other hand, is a little bit more of an ideal dry matter per head. It does not impact the loads. It does not impact the amount of feed that we're expecting to deliver to a pen. It's there to be used more so as a landmark. That's what we're going to try. That's what we're going to try to stay true to. Our application will calculate the difference between the 2. We can see here in this case it would be 6%, because the target dry matter, or negative 6% because the target is a little bit lower than the goal dry matter dry matter per head. The goal dry matter per head can come from the recipe itself. It's a feature right underneath the line where we have goal and target. If we enable that toggle, then our application will pull the dry matter per head for the recipe associated with the pen. And this is good because, again, if the nutritionist is balancing the ration for 61.5 and now we're feeding 51.5, then we've got that's a good indication of a little bit of a discrepancy. Granted that some recipes are fed at different rates, the same recipe is fed at different rates to different pens, but just understand that if we enable that feature, that number is going to come from the recipe itself. Okay, next, mixing and delivering loads. We offer 4 modes of operation. The first one being scheduled loads, traditional scheduled loads where we have a to-do list and the loads are delivering a % of the daily feed that a pen receives, and any changes in pen count or the amount of feed being delivered to a pen will proportionally impact all the scheduled loads for that pen. Within scheduled loads, we've got fixed and dynamic loads. Here's an example of a fixed load. This means that changes in pen count and the amount of feed going to a pen is only going to affect the dynamic loads. It does not affect the fixed loads. So fixed loads can be fixed to a max size to maximize equipment capacity, first pass of the day, second pass of the day. And then any pen count changes or any changes to the amount of feed only impact the dynamic loads. The next mode of feeding is batch loads, better known in the industry as flex feeding. It's over here on our app. In this mode, the operator will select a recipe, usually click max capacity. Again, that's when density, recipe density plays a role, because then we use equipment capacity, recipe density to calculate load max capacity. The operators mix the load and then they can deliver feed using the balanced split mode, which is a balanced calculation between all the pens that were selected to be part of the drops by the operator. We'll use a weighted average model to calculate how much goes to each pen. Or an ad hoc feature, which is pick one pen, deliver some amount of feed, pick another pen, deliver some amount of feed, and so forth. The last mode is what we call a hybrid mode, which is a combination of any one of those, which is very unique to our application, where operators have that flexibility to do one with something else, another one, or a combination of any one of the above modes. This is really cool because we can have a schedule to do first pass of the day and then top off loads, end of the day, we just go into flex feeding mode and kind of top off that way. So again, if you need any assistance utilizing any one of those, please reach out to our support. Inventory management, there will be another slide further down, so I'm not going to get too deep here, but a couple features, key features regarding inventory is the connection with our scale product. For any dairy out there utilizing one feed and having a truck scale, would be interesting to consider our scale product because it does integrate really nicely with our inventory. Some of the key features here, projected usage, which is also on the mobile app. Projected usage utilizes a multifactorial equation. It includes, to calculate that KPI, it includes ingredient dry matter %, recipe composition, pen count, pen dry matter intake, and ingredient shrink if input into the model. And we've received good feedback on the projected daily usage. With that and the current balance, we can calculate out of stock. The out of stock will change red 5 days prior to running out of stock as a pseudo alert, a little bit of an indication that we need to address that. Some of the key features is the ability to enter tickets quickly and even from the mobile app, so making sure that those tickets are entered timely. Also, the ability to edit past entries We offer 65 days. Users can go back and edit any past entry. Reconciliations, usually those are pickups. So to be able to adjust some of that shrink that usually disappears, that's possible to do in inventory. And we have an integrated cost logic for anyone using inventory. Our inventory will use a rolling average model to automatically update the ingredients library, which then updates the recipes, which then updates all the loads and gives us updated cost in the dashboard cost report, in the inventory report itself, or for anyone calling our cloud through our API endpoints. We're always getting up-to-date price because we're entering those loads in inventory and putting in the price. Again, the inventory will go back 65 days and retroactively calculate any changes. So even if we did have price and made an edit to an entry, we'll update all of those reports accordingly. Leveraging the power of automation and integrations, we have a session in the application called integration, and there's a lot of things listed there. Some of the key things that we support. As far as equipment automation, we can do batch box automation, self-loading mixers, and stationary mixers. Ingredient automation, either a relay control panel or a PLC-based automation. We can work with both of those. Integration with fully ORed, partly automated feed centers. So this is a little more sophisticated. If there's a PLC company automating the feed center, we can integrate with that. And integration with microingredient batching. So the power of integration really comes into play in two regards. One is unleashing employee time, because the employees can go do something else, and minimizing user error, because in the long run, software-driven automation is going to be more accurate than humans. That's just the nature of human error. So check in with us if you're interested in any automation-related topic. Now, probably getting into some of the things that matter more for discussion today, how to ensure data quality and some of the best practices that we can do. We picked up this from IBM's website. It lists some of the dimensions that data quality is assessed at. One of them is completeness. The next one is uniqueness, validity, timeliness, accuracy, consistency, and fitness for purpose. Out of the 7, I would say 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 are more software related. That's the job of the software. We could argue that number 3, validity, data matches required format. Example, ingredient cost. Someone could input ingredient cost in an incorrect format, which has happened, but less relevant. Timeliness, again, we could argue that maybe we're not syncing properly. We're not giving the software an opportunity to excel. We don't have the best internet, or someone is working offline for long times and we don't have real-time data. But out of all of this, the 2 that have the most impact on data quality are completeness. Data set has no missing records. Missing loads, aborted loads, employees skipping ingredients, even when they did add that ingredient to the mixer, that creates a huge problem for data quality. So missing data is number one or 2 problems that our support helps with or has to deal with. And the other one of equal relevance is accuracy, correctness of data values. The data correctly represents events that it is supposed to represent. For example, load cell measurements that are not real. Sometimes we'll have those big spikes, and that can come from a bad load cell, corroded cables, moisture in the cables, or cables rattling, or some other factors that will cause those huge, or employees turning off the scale indicator, which then sends our sensor a really large negative reading. So a lot of things there that really impact the accuracy of the data. So here are some quick and easy tips to ensure data quality when it comes to those factors. The first one, maintain healthy equipment, including load cells, wires, connectors, the screws themselves. Oftentimes, it's really scary how much feed stays in the wagon that cannot get pushed out because the screws are old, or the doors don't open all the way, or not, the equipment doesn't clean very well, doesn't mix very well. Scale indicators, again, we already talked about our app only being as accurate as the scale indicator, and the front loader as well, having the proper mounting, proper powering of the device, and even the equipment itself. It's really hard for an operator, front loader operator, to be accurate when the equipment really is the limiting factor. Make sure calibrations are good. We already talked a lot about that. Keeping the OneFeed app updated. We release updates on a 45-day cycle, roughly. So making sure that we enable app auto update on Android and iOS is really important, because every time we have a glitch or something, we push out a fix, and we also keep coming out with new features, enhancements. So it's really important to keep the app up to date. That's when a product champion is relevant. Timely adjustments for data quality. We struggle with this a little bit in the industry, that we seem to always be a little bit behind with adjustments, and then that really plays a factor. For example, changes of ingredient dry matter percent, pen count changes, changes of recipes, inventory management. The more timely those entries are performed, the better the data is going to look. This one we cannot stress enough. We have an employee management module for a reason. Employee training, employee management is really important, not only for feeding software, but for any technology that we have at the dairy. So it's really important to invest in employee training and development. I don't think our industry does enough continued education. We seem to do onboarding and a little bit of training, and then people just have to go on their own, and they end up developing bad habits and then maximizing on those shortcuts and bad habits. So employee continued education is a really good way to keep people on protocol and minimize user error. And lastly, this is a little bit of behavioral psychology. We are all moved by incentives. So thinking about how can we implement reward, not only for keeping up with training and some of those, but also achievements. We have some KPIs on the app that can be used to monitor operator performance, and making sure that we have an incentive for them to do that. Some of the built-in features to help monitor data quality include our dry matter intake alert. That feature is pretty neat. It will tell anybody who is expected to receive the alert that something did go wrong, based on the boundaries that we established for the amount of feed expected to be delivered to a pen. That's probably the most effective one to monitor data quality from a feeding standpoint. We have the dashboard with the percent feeding for every one of those groups. If we dig a little bit further in the app, we can get the percent for every recipe and the percent for every pen. Reach out to our support, we can show you how to do that. We have the dry matter intake graph, which is a really nice feature to look for trends and some of those spikes in intake. The same is true for our ingredient usage graph under usage breakdown. If we switch to dry matter per head, we can really nicely see how straight those lines are, and some of those spikes, which indicate that in one of those days, something was different, okay? There's a couple of real simple calculations that can be done easily in tools like Excel to help monitor data quality and consistency. One example is out of our accuracy report, either mixing accuracy or drop accuracy. It's really easy to highlight large errors. It's really easy to run a summary and get the average deviation for every pen, average deviation for every user, or the number of large deviations for any one of the feeders, the operators. So it's good practice to do some of those summaries and make sure that everybody is being consistent and trying to maintain the deviations as small as possible. This is an interesting one, probably more applicable for consultants. Dollars per pound of consumed dry matter. Out of our intake report, if we get total cost and divide by total dry matter, then we get dollars per pound of dry matter. We probably need to start looking at the third or fourth decimal to see some of that variation. But if we see a big variation in the second decimal, that means something went really bad that day, because it takes a lot of user error to create a variation here on the second decimal, cents per pound or dollars per pound. it's a good elaborated KPI, and it's not affected by swings in dry matter intake. Again, that's easy to calculate, and it's a good way to check for consistency, primarily mixing consistency. Data quality and inventory. We already talked about some of the things in inventory that are really relevant, projected usage and making entries timely, how those are important. Having a process for reconciliations. We always recommend using current cost per ton if we're reconciling, because money cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, it can just be moved around. So we can't really create money or make money disappear in inventory. It's really important to use. If we're making a pickup to adjust the balance, always use your current cost per ton for that adjustment. 65 days to go back and change something that was not correct. And probably the lowest hanging fruit, but the most relevant one is switch forwards timely in recipes. Here's an example of a farm that ran a long time with a forage that was no longer in balance. Same thing for those other two. So this creates a huge negative balance. And then the other forage that they were probably using now missed out on 10,000 tons. So it's really important to switch forages in recipes as soon as we switch those piles. We would like to talk about some simple calculations that can be done today using, again, off-the-shelf tools like Excel, but those really help assess one level deeper how well our operators are mixing and delivering feed. The example here is using box plots. Sometimes in Excel or equivalent applications, those are called candlestick charts. Those are a really nice and easy way to assess distribution and skewness of something. In this case, mixing. We have 4 ingredients here. The first thing we need to do off of our mixing accuracy report is recalculate deviation, because we report deviation, the absolute value. We want the actual value, so just do actual minus target. If the number is positive, it means that the operator overloaded. If the number is negative, the operator underloaded that ingredient. Then run a unique feature to get ingredient name, calculate mean, quartile 1, quartile 3, those are all built-in features and functions in Excel, and the max, and then the average deviation, because that's important. Off of those 4, we can generate the candlestick chart, and here's how we can interpret it. So here's the 0 line, which means no error. The operator we've made no error. So deviation is in the y-axis. If the square is above 0, which is between quartile 1 and quartile 3, it means that on average, our operator is overloading that ingredient. Here's an ingredient that's a little closer to 0, the quartiles, okay? And the bars here is how far min and max are. So those would be the end of our whiskers, okay? And this is important because of variation, and we'll see in outliers too. We'll see a little bit more here in the next slide. But this is a really easy way to see that on average, this operator or the operators here for this farm are overloading our ingredients. Some of that can be corrected through the interface on our app, alerting the operators a little bit earlier, which means changing the ingredient threshold a little bit bigger, making sure that the screen turns yellow a little bit sooner and then turns red, and giving the operator a little bit more time there can help mitigate some of the overloading, okay? Overloading is usually a byproduct of alerting the operator too late, okay? Another thing that is easy to do is run a histogram of the distribution of the error. Again, this is just a further examination of the previous figure. Focusing on one ingredient here, we have the same thing. We calculate the deviation. We have the standard deviation, which is important because we want to have the smallest standard deviation possible, which means that on average, standard deviation is usually 1 plus to one side and another plus the other side, means 2 out of 3 times the operator will be within that standard deviation. We can see here 49, which means that 2 out of 3 times our operator will be between negative 49 and positive 49. We can see that this ingredient is a little skewed to the right, which means we tend to overload a little bit more than underload. Again, those are simple things that anybody can do in Excel, really. And if anybody needs help, we can help build some of those templates. In green dry matter, for the sake of time, we're going to skip through this. It's there, important to look at some of those big dips and trends as well. Dive deep on why some of those happen. Observe the standard deviation, the lower the better. That's the take-home message. Improving data quality. We need to accept that sometimes things just go wrong, and that's okay. The solution to that is to identify erroneous events and then correct them as soon as possible. Don't wait until the end of the month. Don't wait to correct problems in bulk. We need to address problems as soon as they arise. We have a few features in the application to allow us to edit loads. If something went wrong, a load was left in mixing or dropping, we can come in feeding history. As an administrator, this is only available to admins. 3 dots added and fixed those numbers. We can retroactively edit refusals. If an employee made an error, we can go to refusals, pick the calendar, choose the right date, enter the right amount, save, and then it'll correct that. Entries in inventory, we have 65 days to correct those. And if we need to correct historical pin count, please send our support team a note. We have a tool to do that, and we can help you do that. Getting to the end here. Again, this is probably more relevant to consultants. How to help people make better decisions and more timely decisions off of the data coming from the feed software. The traditional model is someone will come into our application, export a report, Excel format, then create a custom report, and then share those insights with a decision maker, either via email, Dropbox, or a farm meeting. That works, but there's latency, and that's a snapshot that's frozen in time. Okay, a more contemporary way can be to call the data directly from our cloud. We have the API endpoints; those are already included in the subscription. As long as someone has the approval from the farm, they can call our cloud and get the data directly from the cloud. Then they can build the custom reports and share real-time interactive reports and dashboards with the decision maker. And that's all streamlined and it updates in real time. Please reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you get there as a consultant, as a manager, as an owner. There's off-the-shelf technology that's free and can be used to do this. So reach out to us. We are always happy to help you get there. Here's just an example of an interactive report with KPIs, filters. You can see here the user can interact with the data. It's a lot more effective than a frozen snapshot in time of something. Hopefully, we learned something today. The first one that we believe is really important is the data quality really begins with proper setup of hardware and the users themselves. Again, making sure that the devices in the loader and the mixer are mounted properly, charged properly, minimum level of internet reliability, setting up users, unique password permissions, and making sure that users or employees are using their unique name and password when they utilize the feed program. Those all help improve data quality. Next, invest in employee development, continued education, reward achievements. We cannot stress how important those are for the overall improvement of the data coming out of the feed software and any other technology at the dairy. Try to fully utilize the features in one feed, especially the key features. Underutilization of features is the #1 thing that we see happening with our users. There's a lot in the feed application. The feed application has a lot of features, but try to reach out to us, work with us, because you're leaving money on the table when you underutilize our application or any other technology for that matter. We need to find a product champion. That's really important. The more someone stays engaged with the application, the more they'll be able to see some of those outliers, those erroneous events, and help correct those. Again, there's simple things that we can do today to get a lot more out of the product. Some of those simple things that we can do with the reports that are exported to Excel. Work with us, reach out to us. We are always happy to help and help you develop some of those tools that help create insights. And I think we did it. Sorry, I went a bit over time, but that's because it took me a little bit to get started.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So now with a few more minutes, we'll kind of open it up to questions. If there are questions, I got a couple here, but if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. If not, then I'll just go with what I have here. Okay, I have a question here, and I will go.
Easy.
Michelle, can the feed program capture harvest loads as well?
Oh, is that easy? No, because that is done by our scale module. Okay, we have a scale management module. It integrates really nicely with our feed management module, and it does capture harvest loads. So with that product, we can create trucks, the drivers, fields, piles where we're delivering all of that, and then it stores their weight, and the users just do one pass. It can be used. Every driver can have the app on their phone, or we can use a tablet to do kiosk mode where the drivers just tap their truck and then confirm their weight. Super easy to do, to install, but no, it's not in the feed software. That's our scale product. So if anybody is interested in harvest solutions, then reach out to us. We've released that a few months ago, and we've gone through some of the winter forage harvesting here in California. It performs really nicely. It's really easy to get started.
Do you have another question here? It's can you build custom reports with the feed program?
I said easy questions. The true answer is no. Okay, the reports that we have in feed are hard-coded. Okay, however, the yes part of the answer is, one, we saw a couple of things that can be done today with the reports that are produced and exported from feed. So reach out to us. We have an array of custom reports that we built templates for, and they're really easy to use, and we can share those with anybody interested. We are prototyping with a report builder where we can build a report, share a link with a user, and then they have that report, a custom report. So if you are interested in custom reports, please reach out to us. We can do that. The reason we're prototyping with this report builder is because we're coming out with another module called Analytics. Analytics will be the product that will build custom reports, custom dashboards, custom notifications for feed and any one of our other modules. So there is no, from a business vision, we're not building report builder in every product. We're building a report builder, and it's coming out hopefully later this year. But for the time being, we are prototyping with a version of that. So if you're interested in custom reports, reach out to us. And fingers crossed, we can push out the analytics module rather quickly, which then will open an array of opportunities. The sky will be the limit for that product when it comes to customization of reports and dashboards.
Are there any other questions out there?
Easy ones.
All right. Well, this looks like no questions, so we're going to wrap this up because we're about to hit the hour mark here, and we don't want to go over too much. So yeah, we're going to wrap this up. This was recorded. We'll send it out. We'll post it on our social media so you guys can go back and look at it. And then if you do have questions, you can feel free to reach back out to us. And then we do have another webinar on Tuesday that you guys can sign up for as well. So we'll get this sent out to everybody. We appreciate you joining, and we'll talk to you guys later.